Good evening and welcome to the 2014 USG Debates. I'm Chris Hoffman moderating this evening. Tonight we have 45 minutes of UView programming set aside so you get to know your candidates running for the offices of President and Vice President that much better. Join our conversation and ask your questions to the candidates on Twitter using the hashtag USG Debates. Are you ready for this? Because we know we are. Let's get this show on the road. We'll begin this evening with current USG President Dillon Kunkle. Dillon, pleasure to have you in the studio here tonight.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Now, Dillon, the first question we want to know is, what got you involved with USG when you did?
Yeah, I would say I started my freshman year, my second semester, my freshman year, and I was sort of always civically engaged, sort of politically engaged as well, and active when I was in high school. And then when I got here, the option was open. My CF, John Morgan, actually at the time, that he was on board for a number of years, and he got me into it. It was just something I really wanted to be part of.
Now, how does this fit into what you want to do? With you graduating in just a few weeks, you're going out into the big world, big boy job time here. Yeah. Where does this fit into that picture?
Don't remind me about the big boy jobs. To be frank, it doesn't, in the sense that there's not too many directly related things when it comes from the world of sort of politics and legislation going into. I'm a science kid. So when it comes down to it, it's just a lot of the skills that you take away from it. So, general professionalism and how to conduct yourself and, do things like this. And so there's a lot of things that can correlate, but in actuality, I'm not going to end up being a politician. I'm going to be a microbiologist by the end of it. So in the grand scheme, I guess what it takes away is a lot of the intangibles that, offices like this teach us.
Now, with you mentioning you're going into the microbiology right out of college in just a couple weeks here, where do you see yourself doing with that major? Where do you see yourself going in 5, 10, maybe even 15 years from now?
Yeah, so I start at the end of June for my PhD at University of Pittsburgh for microbiology and molecular genetics. And then, so that's 5 years, and then, so that's the 5 years bit. And then the 10 years bit would be I'll go and do a postdoctorate at another university after that. So that's 5 more years. So hopefully in 10 years I'll actually be looking for a job.
Now, you mentioned looking at other universities. Have you started that process yet, or is that something you just take in stride, and when it comes to that, you start looking then?
So by the time, when you come down to a postdoctorate after your PhD, a lot of it's, you do a lot of selecting, so you choose down to that. And there's the pool's so small of actually people going for a postdoctorate that you kind of pick where you're going to go more than you're selected, like at the undergraduate or graduate level.
Now, with microbiology, that's one of those fields of sciences that lots of people are starting to get into. You see engineering, you see biology. What do you particularly want to do with the microbiology degree?
All right, if you want to do the sciencey stuff. I'm particularly interested in virulence factors on the molecular basis of infection, and instead of bacteria, so not viruses and not prions or any of those other special things that we can find Arcadia and stuff. So in particular, I want to end up in research. Of course, I'm going to be at a grade A research facility that would be a university, and then hopefully be able to teach at the same time and be able to run my own lab after my postdoc.
Now, you've been a president here for the last year. What has the presidency done for you? What do you feel you've gained out of such a prestigious position here at the university?
Oh, prestigious. That's a good way to put it. So I did this for a year and a half now, and I would say it was a lot of just those intangibles. A lot of stuff that you go into, that it's going to teach you. It's going to teach you professionalism. It's going to teach you how to write letters and how to talk to administration. How it's going to teach you just a lot of those things, but a lot of the intangibles about just how to juggle life, how to stay organized and how to organize people, how to micromanage people, how to macromanage sometimes. And so a lot of that is what I took most out of it, because you going into it, there are things I'm going to learn this, or rather I have to learn it, sink or swim. And so a lot of the smaller things I think is what I took most out of it, were the intangibles.
You mentioned there's a real focus on the smaller things and a lot of macro and micro management. Can you explain that in just a little bit of detail? Like, what did you personally have to do on a daily basis as president for USG?
Yeah, so as president, you represent really the entirety of the student government, which consists of about 30 of us. And then I'll have my executive cabinet, as well as the new fellow will have his executive cabinet, and that runs 4 committees. So on some level, you're running the entirety of the organization, as well as yourself and representing yourself as president. So there's a number of things you have to do outside of just general meetings and running the committees and stuff. You have to serve on faculty assembly, you have to serve on the board of trustees, and then you have to really represent the organization week to week. It changes every time, wherever you end up. So that's one great thing about it, was that week to week you kind of didn't know where you ended up and who you'd be interviewing with, and you had to sit down and meet with and talk with and stuff. So.
You have your future successor sitting right across the room from you right now. What advice would you give them on taking such a position as you have right now?
Yeah, I would say, Julian's going to end up with a really great vice president, which is good. I've worked with the 2 of them for a really long time. And I would say that really paramount to, if I can say success in this position over the past year and a half, is Evan Shaw. I mean, I've known him forever, really, and I can't say enough about how much he's helped us. And so I would say, harbor that relationship really and sort of grow that between your vice president. And we found a really great mix of figuring out where I wouldn't pull the president card where, you're my subordinate and, I'm over you and, I control you and so much. And I would say do that so much as you're a tandem group, and it's always a we thing. It's never an I thing, even though the president does unfortunately sometimes have to, represent as the face. It's always a we thing.
Before we go to break here, what is the one thing you would still want to see them carry on from where you have gone? You've carried USG so far for a year and a half here. What was the one thing you want them to carry on and keep the tradition of USG going here just before we get to break? I
would say a lot of it would be sort of holding administration's feet to the fire, but in the correct way. So a lot of our administration, what we tried to do was get back to sort of real legitimacy when it came to administration in the greater university, is that that big word that we really don't know what it is. So holding their feet to the fire and making them do what they say they're going to do, and just really keeping that relationship, that working relationship going with a greater university.
All right, thanks, Dillon. Good, nice little interview there with our current USG president. But after the break, we're going to hear from LeDonne, who is running for vice president. We'll be taking questions from you on Twitter. Keep using that hashtag USG Debates. We'll be right back after this.
Watching the 2014 USG Debates live on UView.
UView wants you to be a part of our live studio audience for the 2014 USG Debates. Hear what the candidates for president and vice president have to say as they duel it out. USG Debates live April 8th, 7 p.m. only on UView.
Hi, you're tuned into Point Park University Television, and UView is for you. Stacy?
Yes, Dan. UView is for you.
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 UView is for you. UView is for you. UView is for you.
Crying out loud, I gotta do everything around here. UView's down. There's no one even in the control room. Paul, have you seen Jesse?
I don't know where he is. You know how
You
he
can
is.
never
He's
find
always
him
missing.
when you need him. UView's down, and no one has any idea where he's at. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm just like losing my mind. Well, here you are. For crying out loud, UView's down. You're in here playing around. Get out here and fix it. And clean up this mess. Some people's kids.
You're watching the 2014 USG Debates live on UView.
We went to our social media correspondent to the night, Johnny Frywald, to go out into campus to find to find out what students wanted out of their new USG president and vice president. Before we got things started here tonight, let's take a look at what she found out.
For the upcoming year for USG, I would like to see the new president and vice president just be more open and down to talking to the kids around campus. A lot of times for USG, I see the people who are president, vice president, but they're always off doing something or something like that. Just being involved with campus, I've seen, is the best way to get into people's hearts and minds, and I'd like to see that next year.
So what I'd like to see a change in the student government is better food in the dining hall and healthier choices in the cafe.
I guess as a former student, I would have liked to see them more because when I was a student, I wasn't sure who was the president or vice president, so I didn't really know them on a personal level, so I really didn't know who was doing things, or I really didn't care because I would just hang out with people I know, and if I don't know who's running things, then I don't know what the events are really.
To maybe have some dorms there because people cannot live in Lawrence. There's not AC. It's really hard during the summertime when you come back for the first semester. So I think that's going to be a best option. Yeah.
I really think the big thing I would like from the new president and new vice president is to actually know who they are. Even when I was a freshman last year and as a sophomore, I didn't even know that Dillon Kunkle was our president till about 2 weeks ago when I heard about the debate.
As a commuter, I'd like to see USG do more for the commuters as far as making it more affordable and also less of a headache.
I'd like to see a lot more events come out of USG just so I know more of what's going on with them.
Here's how it's going to run this evening. Andrew LeDonne, who is running for vice president here, he's going to give us a minute and a half to deliver us his opening remarks. So let's get the chance to meet your vice president, Andrew LeDonne, right now.
Hello, my name is Andrew LeDonne. I'd like to welcome all of you to the debate this evening. I'm going to be a senior national security and intelligence major this coming fall. I've served on USG for 3 years now. A year and a half as treasurer. In my time there, I've worked with 3 administrations so far, and each year I've tried my best to be as influential as possible, starting off with freshman year as a senator and then transitioning into sophomore year as treasurer and then junior year as treasurer, funding clubs and going through all those. Towards the end of this semester, my committee has worked on making the club funding process a little bit easier, so hopefully next year we can work that even better and make it as easy as possible. So.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Now, here are the rules for this evening. I'll have a question, then we'll take a question from each person of our panel, which is made up of current USG President Dillon Kunkle, current USG Vice President Evan Shaw, and Editor-in-Chief of the Globe, Andrew Goldstein. Then we'll be taking your questions. Keep tweeting us those questions using the hashtag USG Debates. Now, Andrew, you're going to have 90 seconds to answer each question. Let's get this show on the road. Here we go. Andrew, with one big thing, you have a school of comm here. You have the Globe, you have UView, and you have WPPJ representing the radio there. How do you plan on being able to connect with all the student media?
Julian and I will always be open to interviews and questions, and we've already talked about having a fireside chat type of discussion next year with you guys at UView. So hopefully we'll open the beginning of the year up with that so we can inform them what we've done over the summer. We're always open for interviews, and we have been through my last 3 terms here, that we're always open for interviews at the end of USG meetings, and we're always just an email away. So your questions are always welcome, and we'll do our best to answer them.
All right, we're going to send it now over to current USG president here with the first question from our panel, Dillon Kunkle.
All right, Andrew. Unfortunately, and you know this probably better than anybody, that unfortunately on this campus we have a lot of sort of student apathy when it comes to student organizations and really everything of the like. So sort of in this coming year, is there any initiative to better that? Is there any way that you can sort of better get clubs to have some efficacy?
Right now I'm working with Caleb Rogers and Dean Gieske, and we're going to have some meetings with the clubs and some focus groups to sort of get them involved, see why they're spending their money, see why they aren't, and then hopefully we can sort of tailor some things and make it so it's more open and they'll be able to get their information out better to students. we think that sometimes they plan for really big events and then life and school catches up with them. So hopefully we can get the sale office involved and possibly CAB involved to help them plan these events and, make these events happen and make school more exciting. So.
We're sending now over to current USG Vice President Evan Shaw. Evan, what is your first question here for Andrew?
Hey, Andrew. Do you and Julian have any plans for summer session thus far? And although you don't know the amount yet, how do you plan on spending any leftover funds?
Leftover funds, that's going to be something that hopefully we'll have, but from the looks of it, we're already $8,000 over the budget for spring. So if we have that money back, then we'll hopefully get some things to try to get the new incoming freshmen involved whenever we have Pioneer Experience Days. We'll be on campus for those, and we'll also have tables. We have to do some funding for the bike program that we have. We've funded those bikes that you're allowed to rent from the student center, so they always need some upkeep, so we'll have to do that yearly maintenance on those. And then we'll appeal to the legislative body that's coming in and see what they think that money will best go to, and we'll adjust from there.
All right, we're going to send now to fellow media partner, editor-in-chief of the Globe, Andrew Goldstein. Andrew, what is your first question here for, Vice President Andrew LeDonne?
Hi there, Andrew. Well, there's going to be a new initiative in the university starting in the, in the fall, and a big part of that is advising and a new system with a student success coordinator and a faculty advisor. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that new system and if you know any ways, or were thinking about any ways to improve on that.
I think that the focus of the administration needs to be, the betterment of students, and so this hopefully will be a key player in making their experience here that much better. We get a lot of comments about how advising needs to change, and this is something we see the administration reacting to, and we believe that hopefully this can improve and make their experience better, and we'll continue to get concerns from students, and if they like it, then we'll give that feedback to the administration. If they don't, we'll try to get some tips and see where they can adjust it, and if it needs adjusted, it needs adjusted. All plans have, their flaws and their pluses, so we'll see where it goes.
All right, now we're going to send it to your questions. We're going to take it upstairs to our newsroom with Johnny Frywald, who's going to be taking your questions from Twitter.
All right, Andrew, our next question comes from a current Senator, Riley Benson. He would like to know how you feel personally about the push for adjunct unionization.
So that question was about adjunct unionization, I believe.
Correct.
But right now, I think, like I said before, that our main concern needs to be students' experience and their education here. I don't want to speak for the adjunct faculty, and I don't want to say that they should unionize or that they shouldn't. Whatever they need to do to better their teaching and provide the best education possible for our students, that needs to be done. Whether it's unionizing or not unionizing, it's our choice, but I think we just need to have the best education possible.
Okay, Andrew, and one more from the Twitter poll. Brittany Loffer would like to know your opinion on the UPass situation.
I think that I've always been a proponent for bus passes for for students at the university. Freshman year, I did end up pushing to have the bus pass system cut because it wasn't serving the entire university. It was only serving a portion. I also went and lobbied at the Port Authority event so that they didn't cut some of the bus routes. I think it would be a wonderful thing to have bus passes for all students. We attempted to get that in motion, but the upper administration asked us to have 3/4 of all the students vote on that, and we got a very slim majority of students in general. So if you guys aren't going to vote on something we ask you to vote for, then it's out of our hands. So maybe we can get something going again, but it's all on you guys to vote when we ask you to.
Now, you mentioned it's really on the students to get out there and vote. Andrew, what is something you can do to really bring awareness to students, to really get them involved in United Student Government and get issues like this really on the forefront so that the students are really connected with USG?
whenever we try to have an event or bring up an issue, we'll appeal to the Globe and UView and try to get it out as much as possible. We also put things on social media so that they can see it, because almost everyone on campus has to have a Facebook or Twitter or something. We send it out in mass emails, so we do our best, but if you're not going to put some effort into it, there's only so much we can do.
We're going to send it back to our panel again. Once again, it is Dillon Kunkle, the current USG Vice President.
All right, Andrew. As someone that's held the position, it's really hard to push sort of your own agenda as a vice president. And a lot of it's about your relationship with the president, who we know is going to be Mr. Singleton. So just can you describe your relationship with him, with Julian, that is, and just really what do you bring to the table, sort of as a collective group?
Currently, Julian and I have been serving on USG since we were freshmen together. We've worked together on some things. We've always had a good relationship. So I think we'll be able to be a good team, and we'll support our team with a good administration. So I think that we'll be able to provide the best experience for our students, and we'll be the best possible we can.
Once again, we're back here now, and we're going to have Evan Shaw, the current USG Vice President, with another question for future Vice President Andrew LeDonne.
Andrew, how do you and Julian plan on solidifying USG's relationships with the various administration, faculty, and staff throughout the university?
Well, thanks to you and Dillon, we've already had a wonderful relationship with most of the administration. So I don't think there's much more relationship building. I think it's just keeping at this point. So as long as we don't wrong them in any way and continue to work with them and have open lines of communication, I think we should be able to do a wonderful job in keeping those relationships.
And our last question here before the closing remarks from Andrew comes from Andrew Goldstein, the editor-in-chief of the Globe.
We talked about cutting bus passes, and that's always a hot button issue. But if you don't have bus passes, what kind of things can you do to improve the commuter experience at the university?
We've always had a commuter club, and this last semester, the participation in that was down, so that commuter club went away. We're always open for suggestions and concerns. Our door is always open, so if you have any questions, we'll try to work with anybody on anything. Unfortunately, I'm not a commuter, so I don't know what troubles they go through. We don't have any real commuters on our legislative body or anything. So if anybody has any concerns or questions, feel free to ask, and if you have anything that we can work on with, we'd be glad to, and try to push the administration to make it better for them. So.
All right, let's tie up the loose ends here. Andrew, you're going to have your closing remarks, and you have 1:45 to do so.
I would just like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I know it's no longer really a debate, it's more of a conversation. So hopefully you can all come out and vote next week. I believe there's 3 different dates to vote. They'll be on a couple different locations. You'll get emails about them. It'll be on Facebook, Twitter. Pay attention to that. If you haven't followed us yet, follow us on Twitter. We get some great information out on there. Also, we have an event coming up this weekend, Pioneer Community Day. That's on Saturday. There's still time to sign up for that. We're going to be out there doing some work for the university and the whole campus, which is the city. So next year, I can't wait to get started with Julian, make things better, adjust things, do whatever we can to make your experience here better. Thanks for having us tonight, Chris.
And that wraps up our vice presidential coverage. Thank you for joining us here, Andrew. Keep those questions coming on Twitter. Use the hashtag USG Debates for Julian Singleton, who is running for president, coming up right after the break.
You're watching the 2014 USG Debates live on UView.
Freedom of speech is my right as an American to voice my opinion, or if I choose to stay silent. I have the right to practice my religion. I have the right to publish my own works. With this right, we can be creative, innovative, and change the world. For more information, visit www.freedomofspeechpsa.org.
Do you know all the things you can do with your student ID? Along with getting discounts to some of the restaurants around campus. Showing your Point Park ID can net you deals on tickets at theaters in the Cultural District. To check out all the current options, just search Student Discounts on the Point Park University homepage.
An expression, a belief, a symbol, freedom to worship, an unspoken word. To express yourself means standing up for what you believe in. There's a freedom to worship and a freedom to live. To speak never saying a word, to love, to let your voice be heard. The light of your own path. For more information, visit www.freedomofspeechpsa.org.
UView wants you to be a part of our live studio audience for the 2014 USG Debates. Hear what the candidates for president and vice president have to say as they duel it out. USG Debates live April 8th, 7 p.m. only on UView.
You're watching the 2014 USG Debates live on UView.
This is the way it's going to this is the way it's going to run. It's the same way we're going to hear the opening remarks from Julian Singleton here, who is running for the USG president, and then we're going to have a Q&A session with him. Keep those questions coming on Twitter. Use that hashtag USG Debates. Now let's hear from Julian.
Alrighty, thank you for having me here this evening, Chris, and the panel. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to have myself and Andrew come in and talk to you about our hopes for running for president and vice president for next year. For those of you who do not know me already, my name is Julian Singleton, and I'm a junior biological sciences major from Dover, Pennsylvania. And I've spent 2 years on USG working with Dillon and Evan, and very closely with Andrew. For today, my opening remarks, I would like to open with a quote from FDR. Let us never forget that government is ourselves, and not an alien power over us. The ultimate rulers of our democracy are not a president and senators and congressmen and government officials, but the voters of this country. This quote resonates deeply with me because I would really like to spend my term as president. I'd like to remind the student body that the power to make change is really in their hands, and we, as their representatives, are nothing more than the conduit through which change occurs. In my term as president, I would like to get students more involved on campus. I would like to help foster a sense of pride in our university. I would like to help students realize that if they are unhappy in any way with anything that's happening on our campus, that they have a voice, that they can make suggestions and really voice their ideas to administration. And I would also like to open a more clear dialogue between the student body and our faculty, staff, and administration.
Thank you for that opening remark, Julian. Once again, I'd like to remind you, I have the first question here before we go to the panel, and remind you guys at home to use that hashtag. Keep them coming. Keep hashtagging USG Debates. Now, Julian, you mentioned you really want to communicate with the student body. Some people, they say there's a little bit of a lack between USG and the student body. What do you want to do as president to really build that bridge and communicate from USG to the rest of the student body here at Point Park?
I would really first like to create an open door policy, kind of for USG. I would like to let students know that our door is always open. They can always come with a concern, a question. If they want to get to know any of us, they'd like to see our Constitution, kind of figure out how we run student government. And also, kind of as a student, not just as president, I'd like people to come and get to know me. Beyond being the future president of USG, I'm also a cheerleader, a rugby player. I'm a science major. I mean, I'm just like everyone else. So I would like to just make myself more approachable to students. I would like to remind everyone that even though we are the representative body of all students, we're students just like everyone else.
And once again, the panel is USG President Dillon Kunkle, USG Vice President Evan Shaw, and Editor-in-Chief of the Globe, Andrew Goldstein. We're going to start with the USG President Dillon Kunkle here with the first question from our panel for future President Julian Singleton.
Hey, Julian. So if you give us a minute and just reflect sort of on the budgeting process that's happened in previous years, it's a really big portion of what we do here at student government. And then beyond that, any improvements or any alterations in that process that you would like to see happen?
In our current budgeting process, I believe that there tends to be a lack of communication kind of between the senators and the student body. I would really like to make things a lot more clear, a lot more transparent about how spending happens, kind of where our money comes from, what we plan to do with it, and really invite more students to come to more of our meetings because all of them are open. I would just like to have more attendance, kind of have more student involvement, kind of see how we run things. And if they have any questions or opinions or thoughts on how we may better work on the funding process, the budgeting process, that we're open to any suggestions that they have.
We're going to send it back over the panel now with current USG Vice President Evan Shaw here with his first question for future President Julian Singleton.
Julian, because there's no specific outlined way in our Constitution on how you and Andrew will go about choosing your executive cabinet, I was just a little curious of how do you plan on going through that process?
Well, I have spoke briefly with Andrew about the process in which we will choose our cabinet. We really wanted to take into account each person as an individual, how they work, their work ethic, kind of the ethos of who they are, and as well as how they work as a team, how they work with us, and kind of the presence they'll bring to the executive cabinet.
Now we're going to send it over to Andrew Goldstein, who is the current editor-in-chief for the Globe. Andrew, what is your question for Julian?
What do you see as USG's role in creating student engagement on campus?
With student engagement, I feel that United Student Government, we make a push to kind of have students more involved on campus, kind of get everyone together for pep rallies, kind of like carnivals, things of that nature. So I believe that in the future, we'll have more of these events. We'll publicize them more. We'll try and get more of social media, kind of UView, the Globe, Twitter, kind of merge everything together to kind of bring all of the students who are in the age of technology back to the age of one-on-one communication.
You guys have been using the USG hashtag USG Debates. We're going to send it back upstairs to our newsroom with our social media correspondent, Johnny Freiwald, with some questions via social media.
Okay, Julian, our next question comes from current Senator and UView member Blaine King. He would like to know, what is your top priority to accomplish in your term?
Wow, that's a great question. To be honest, Blaine, I haven't really spent too much time thinking about the number one thing. I would really like to continue trying to get budget transparency, not only just in United Student Government, have our budget transparent, but also the university's budget, have budget transparency for the university. So I think that would be one of the biggest things that I'd be looking to push for.
Okay, Julian, our next question comes from Zach Aaron. He would like to know how you plan on getting to know the student body more personally.
Well, going to a school of 4,000 people, I would really hope to meet everyone personally, one-on-one. Thankfully, over the past 2 years, I've been an orientation leader. So I've actually spent my last 2 summers getting to know the freshman class. So that would be the current sophomores now and the freshmen this year. And I'll also be orientation leader over the summer again. So I'll be here for all the Pioneer experiences, getting to meet all the freshmen. So I would really like to just open that kind of the line of communication right from the very beginning. Here's who I am. My door is open. You can come and talk to me.
Okay, Julian, our next question is from Nick Moran. He says that the university has increased efforts for recruitment, but would like to know if you think keeping retention is more important and what you plan on doing to help retention rates.
Retention in a private institution is actually a very important thing because our tuition is much more expensive than a lot of state universities. So in the way of retention, I would really like to kind of create, like I said earlier, more of budget transparency, that students really make make a wise decision when they choose to come to Point Park, just because of the expense it costs to come to this university. So students know from the beginning, this is the place they want to be. They understand fully, both academically and financially, what they're getting into, and I believe that'll be a great way to help with retention rates.
Okay, we have another question from Blaine King. He would like to know who you plan on having serve on your executive cabinet.
Oh, wow. That is a great question, Blaine. And there are a lot of wonderful senators at this moment. There are a lot of people who worked very hard during the year and worked very closely and personally with the current president and vice president. At this time, I don't want to definitively say who exactly who will be on the cabinet, but I would just like to say that both Andrew and I are taking everyone's efforts into account at the moment.
All right, Julian, we're going to come back to me and then our panel and then back to upstairs just a little bit more here. First question for you is, now USG does a lot. Now, what is something they have done that you would want to have done differently? What is something you see you would do differently as a USG president, and can you explain why?
I stand firmly with a lot of the decisions that the current president and vice president have made. One thing that I would really like to change, which is nothing specific, I would really like to create a better line of communication between media and ourselves, because there sometimes tends to be a blurred line between what we mean to say and what is projected to the student body. So next year, I know myself and Andrew would really like to make things very clear, our decisions we make, why we make the decisions, and how we think it's in the best interest of the students.
We're going to send it back over to our panel again. Here is current USG President Dillon Kunkle.
Julian, as you know, the university is really going through a lot of changes here with Point Park 2020 project that's going to be initiated here in the first coming fall semester of 14. And you'll be serving on your first faculty assembly here in a month, less than now. And so I just like to ask you how you plan on really sort of continuing that process with USG and that relationship with the 2020 project and continuing the sort of academic end of that.
Well, Dillon, thankfully, you created kind of a great foundation with this, I'd have to say. I have some big shoes to fill, but I would really like to continue with the line of communication and also open the dialogue, not just between USG and the administration, but the actual student body. Because if I would go out and I would say, hey, do you know about the 2020 project? I would have to say 75% of the students, and that's a made-up number, they don't know what I'm talking about. And it would be my goal, Andrew's goal, the future Senate's goal, to kind of get everyone aware about what the 2020 project is. Kind of have everybody aware about the new administration and kind of what's happening on campus.
We're going to keep moving along with our panel. We're going to send it over now to current USG Vice President Evan Shaw.
Julian, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how will you go about getting the incoming fall 2014, freshman class involved either with USG or on campus activities in general?
Well, thankfully, I'll be here all summer being an orientation leader, so I'll have a lot of time for shameless plugs for USG and a lot of student activities. But also, we hold a lot of information fairs, involvement fairs. It'll be really student government's responsibility to get each and every freshman involved, as well as campus life and the staff over in that department to kind of rally together to get all the freshmen involved, and more importantly, to get them informed and aware of what they can do on campus.
Now we're going to send it back over to our fellow media partner over at the Globe, Editor-in-Chief Andrew Goldstein.
Hey, Julian. What do you have to do to transition from the current USG administration sitting next to me here so that you can hit the ground running in the fall?
Really, I believe the best way to get started is to watch and to listen, because that's the key. It's to watch Dillon and Evan, how they interact with administration now, kind of how they form bonds, how they begin to make relationships. And then it would be mine and Andrew's task to just foster the relationship and to help it grow because there's a great foundation between the students and the administration now. We just want to further it.
It's like a birdhouse in here with all the tweets we've been getting from the hashtag USG Debates. We're going to send it back to our newsroom for our social media coordinator, Johnny Frywald.
Okay, Julian, Tori Adams would like to know if there are any plans for the Osteria or the Nathan's restaurant locations, and if USG has any involvement in that.
At the moment, I honestly don't know anything about the Osteria location. All I can tell you at the moment is that I know they are putting in a new restaurant in that location. But, I mean, as of right now, I'm as clueless as everyone else, frankly.
Now, we have a funny question here. Senator Adam Neal would like to know, who is physically stronger, you or Andrew LeDonne?
Well, Adam, I don't know. I mean, I'll get back to you on that one later.
Another question. Okay, so a similar question. Riley Benson would like to know, who would win in a race?
I do not know who would win in an actual running race, but I play rugby and I ran track in high school.
And one more question from Senator Riley Benson. He would like to know, if you could sum yourself up in a Katy Perry song, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Oh, I love Katy Perry so much, I don't know if I can. I don't know. Maybe Fireworks, I would have to say. It kind of fits my personality.
We're going to look for some more fireworks here in the final closing moments here from Julian Singleton. You have a minute 45 because, baby, you've been a fireworks, so let's send it back over to him.
Alrighty, I would like to thank you all again for having me here today, and I would like to close with a quote from a song that I like. You have to keep on keeping on, even with the feeling that you're going to keep losing. You have to come back strong. This quote, it's fun, and it means a lot to me, and I hope to everyone else. Things in life that are the most worthwhile come at the greatest cost. I would like to remind all students that for every dream, there's a price. That striving to meet your goals will not be easy, but you have to work to keep your dreams alive in a world that always tries to test your determination. Thank you.
And there you have it. You heard from your future president, Julian Singleton. He's got the seriousness and a personality, but we'd like to thank everyone who helped out with the debates this evening. The panel, Dillon Kunkle, Evan Shaw, and Andrew Goldstein, Johnny Frywald upstairs on social media, and of course, all of you for watching. Don't forget, USG elections are the week of April 14th. We're out of time tonight, but for all of us here at UView, I'm Chris Hoffman. Good night.